Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the great introduction. We didn't know that the organizers already think so much about the topics beforehand. That's really cool. So thanks a lot for coming and being here with us to share our learnings. What we're going to talk about. Basically, we're sharing with you an approach that we took, as well as a little bit of a critical reflection on how in-situ service prototyping, so service prototyping in space, can inform the design of situated retail experiences. And a little bit of a sneak preview of what we are talking about. So the base of our talk and where we abstracted our learnings from is a very, very large multi-stakeholder project where we were asked to understand and define a little bit the requirements of a future global rollout of automotive dealerships. So these are the places where you go, or you still go to kind of get inspired and perhaps buy a new car or not. We are not allowed to show the concrete imagery, so we thought about a creative solution to do that, and we're looking forward to see what you think about that as well. Yes, so you already know who we are. And we were introduced. Thanks very much for that again. So we led this project 1 year ago, or we started it 1 year ago. It's over already. And we thought, well, we're not colleagues anymore. We still love each other. And this is about sharing design knowledge and methods. So it's important to talk about it. Doesn't matter where you come from. Just a little bit of a context of our work, which is what really connects us, I think. It doesn't matter for who we work. It's basically that we are very excited about situated and connected services and experiences. So in our work, there is a lot of key approaches, or perhaps those 4 key approaches that we share. It's both like, so we look at the service design beyond product design. We're trying to find out how new technologies can elevate possibilities for products and experiences. We try to look at the digital and physical together, and we, as you probably all do, try to always involve stakeholders in co-creation, so we are sure that we are doing the right things. A little bit again about the overarching context that was so well introduced from before. So I don't know if you can think what this is. When I first saw it, I thought it's kind of a skater ramp, open like a garage or something like that. So, but this is actually one of the most successful Prada stores in New York. Yeah, I guess what we are already all agree about it, that this future of shopping is not anymore actually about shopping. It's not anymore about purchasing something. It is a lot about actually having very special, immersive experiences, as we have a lot of great examples of around the world. It includes very well-designed and intuitive digital touchpoints that also raise our expectations on site. And obviously, it has to do a lot with very well-designed and personalized service. So, in a summary, the personalized interactions with customers across those kind of intuitive digital touch points and immersive physical experiences will be fundamental to the success of situated retail experiences in the future, as more and more retail is happening online. But what was our concrete challenge? We already had a sneak preview at the beginning. So the base was a planned future automotive dealership rollout with a brand new architectural setting that was planned, with some new service roles that somebody thought about, because they had to do also with what automotive is facing in the future in terms of challenges, in terms of new technologies, in terms of changing customer expectations, and obviously a lot of digital touch points. But how can we actually understand what this experience is going to be? How can we design it? And how can we think about this very careful orchestration of human, digital, and spatial touch point in such a complex environment before actually building everything and spending millions? I already showed you a little bit the picture. There is multiple factors that influence the customer experience in a situated environment. First of all, obviously, and unfortunately, as it happens often, architecture is there. Perhaps without even thinking about the actual flows and how services experience or how digital touch points will be incorporated. But we have service roles, we have content and technologies in the space, perhaps, and we also obviously have the whole data landscape around those touch points. And I don't have to mention to you, you can imagine why this project was so complex. It was complex because behind all those factors, there is a lot of different departments that actually take care of very specific aspects, from HR, marketing, to the guys that take care about the digital retail concept and so some of them work well together, some not, and this is a really challenging task to tackle. And on top of that, obviously, you have very, very different customer types, from the interested ones, to the ones that want to experience something, ones that actually have an appointment, to ones that are angry and have something to repair. So how can we imagine that? And basically, how can we prototype and imagine future service experiences in a dealership, but also beyond, is what we want to talk to you about and how we actually tackle that challenge.
Okay, thank you. So now, yeah. Hello. Okay, we need this one. I have 2 mics. Let me give you some more insights to our approach and how we work. This is a very simplified floor plan that you see here. And what we did first was an analysis of the environment that we were dealing with. And we mapped out different service and spatial user interactions. We looked at specific experiences, like, for instance, arriving, greeting, orientation, and exploring the space. And for the scope of the project, and also due to the big size and the distances we were dealing with, we had to focus, and we focused on 3 areas. That you see here. That was actually the welcome area, a lounge, and also a showcase car area. So basically, like the beginning, like the entrance and the starting point of a journey in this kind of space. And all this insights we then nailed down in hypothesis, and I brought you one here that was actually also dealing with this issue of distances. And also here about communication, that this needs a digital notification tool. And we had several hypotheses, and the very important part that we now want to share with you is actually the phase of prototyping, where we try to actually validate those hypotheses. So what we did could be best described as in-situ experience prototyping of services. So what does that actually mean? It's kind of a combination of 3 different prototyping methods. So we combined spatial prototypes, digital prototypes, and also service interaction prototypes. And in detail, this means we build up one-to-one mock-ups. So this, you can imagine now, I talked about the space already. This means we needed a lot of space. We were lucky we had a huge industrial hall where we could build up those mock-ups. And the reason we built them up was to test those distances and to have a chance to really act out these service interactions that happen or are supposed to happen in this space. We also did build digital prototypes to actually test hypotheses related to digital mediated services or other interactions in this space, such as digital signage or other communications. And how did we actually combine everything in the end? We created scene scripts that described all the service interactions that were supposed to happen, and that involved all the customers and staff members who were facing or important for the certain aspects and hypotheses. So for 1 week, actually, we had the chance to be in that hall, and everything to test everything, we invited the stakeholders from the different departments of our client who had to participate and were also informed before. And then first of all, we used our scene scripts, the ones that I showed before, and you see a little on the side, to assign roles to different participants. For instance, service staff, customers, and so on. And we tried and succeeded quite well to find also the right representatives of the different departments who hold the most knowledge about the certain role to act it out. Unfortunately, and we will talk about that later, we had very few real customers or other roles in like real users. This second element actually is based on the scripts too, and we made different spatial and artifact configurations on stage that reflected actual architectural arrangements. And the very important thing here was that it was very flexible, and we to change and assemble the things how we needed. And the third, I mentioned, the digital prototypes were incorporated in some of the scenes. For example, the watch that we incorporated. And in addition to that, we placed an audience screen in front. This is what you see there in the beginning, in the front, the orange part that was supposed to show what is actually happening on those very little prototypes so that everybody could follow. And here I come to the next and last point. We invited in a big audience, so people from us, but also especially the most important stakeholders from our client, who was observing every scene played out. And very important, after every scene we had a feedback round where everybody was contributing the feedback they saw, and we used that feedback to instantly adapt actually our scenes, role plays, and also the stage and some prototypes. So, as we said, now we want to especially share our learnings on our approach and what we figured out.
Yeah, thanks very much. So, as with everything, there were benefits but also challenges with the approach that we have adopted for this problem. And also, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the benefits, which is, of course, something that we like a lot. So, for us, the first, perhaps overarching benefit, obviously, is that this approach allowed us to have a more of a holistic view and testing approach to actually trying out complex service interactions where we have multiple levels and touch points, both from architectural but also from human and digital perspective. This is not really easy to combine and not really easy to do in the lab. Second of all, one of the most important things, perhaps, is that this approach helps uncover challenges in digitally mediated service interactions. So, for instance, one of the problems we uncovered in the analysis of that complex space was that the new architectural setting was actually hampering communication between the staff members, as distances were really very long and sometimes would prevent each other to actually see and to communicate in a more intuitive way. So we designed a digital tool that was supposed to improve the internal communication in that case. However, while it worked for a couple of interactions, it didn't work for interactions that's related to an actual customer. And both customer and consultant felt really awkward with that type of device. And so that was something that was kind of assumed and only realized in the actual also architectural setting which it was supposed to improve. Second, the third benefit is that it relates a little bit more to the actual spatial setting. So the qualitative data that we get from observations of those service prototypes, if you want, they are actually is a relevant qualitative in-situ data. So we were able to see how flows really work and how people really perceive the space in a specific interaction. And so, for instance, we found out that some architectural settings such as WOW that occlude, for instance, signage, or occlude specific areas which were supposed to be really easy to discover, such as the lounge area where you want to kind of quickly get to relax and wait, were actually difficult to arrange. And as Elisabeth already mentioned to you, we had this very flexible arrangement of mock-up spatial modules, so we could actually try out, take walls out, and see how service and interactions would work in a different setting. And of course, everything is related to improving the actual internal stakeholder management. So we already mentioned to you that this project was really complex, not only because it is a complex environment, but because there is also a lot of departments taking care of something in that context. So aligning them on paper is different than aligning them when we invited them in the space, when we made them actually play out themselves, acting out different roles, and when we allowed them for immediate feedback after each kind of a scene to play and get basically way more in-depth understanding of the subject matter. This method also allowed to uncover kind of unexpected viewpoint differences. That was really interesting for us as well. So basically, some of the nice examples that we have is that, for instance, in the context of new technologies such as smart and e-mobility, this specific automotive context thought about inventing new service roles, which will be like the tech specialist somehow. That will be the guy that will actually inform you and inspire you in this place, especially in the context of thinking about situated retail as a place for inspiration and education and not so much about shopping. But it turned out that the consultants on the ground already know that, the few that we were able to get, and they see that new role as a threatening role actually for their own credibility in front of the customer in that job. And that also was some discrepancy within departments that only came relevant when they saw it on site. And very much related to that, but from a little bit of a different perspective. So not only about service roles, but actually when we think about the whole customer experience strategies, oftentimes, especially in such big organizations, customer experience strategies are made in a very top-down manner. And what is imagined is not what actually would happen. And for instance, here, the customer experience, one of the customer experience strategies or missions was to kind of open up the space. That was reflected actually in the architecture, open up the space, blur boundaries between different customers, make everybody basically kind of treated equally, which in itself is it's a good idea, of course. But then one of the partners from an after-sales department decided to challenge that approach and deliberately incorporated a very, very angry customer actor in a way and it felt really bad for them for an angry customer with a service problem and a potential future buyer to sit in one location. So while we didn't find a solution, it became apparent basically that a different approach to that space and also the conceptualized service interaction should be made. And finally, and that is something that we obviously love, of course, is a playground for future-proof service experiences and customer experiences. So one of our main goals is also to explore what new technologies can do to create unique situated experiences in space and help also kind of understand how this environment can be a explorative playground, beyond a mere car display. So we experimented with a large of different possibilities, from voice recognition through sensor-based lighting, responsive content, and highly personalized content based on AI. And yeah, we're not able to show you that, but one of the examples that we really liked was, for instance, kind of a voice recognition-based experience that was incorporated once a person would sit and try to experience a new kind of a showcase car. So the system, so the environment would pick up like casual words in the conversation with the consultant, and specific video imagery will be shown and will be made kind of immersive, as if he were driving into that environment. So that was really great, and we think, I mean, beyond the actual topic of a dealership, this type of situated prototyping is the only thing you can do to actually imagine that more physical and embodied experiences in the actual environment, especially when a service is involved. But we obviously also found a couple of challenges of what we did, and we want to share you a couple of those.
Exactly. So one challenge was that actually the prototypes, and you saw some images, were quite on a high fidelity, and some of the participants actually perceived them as already ready to be implemented solutions. That was not really the case, and all of those prototypes still would need to be explored and defined and actually tested. But yeah, I guess this is a learning lots of us did already, and we did it here too. And also building on that, actually, also on our side, we had a almost similar learning towards the fidelity, because the prototype Nina just mentioned, we did prototype a voice recording tool that helped identify keywords so that the communication would be easier. It worked. It was great fun building that prototype. We had lots of fun also in the studio beforehand, and we were pretty proud, but still we figured out that, or we kind of learned that a Wizard of Oz approach would have been here also a solution that would have been durable on stage to test our hypothesis. And another thing, and I guess this is also nothing new for most of you who are dealing with user research and also testing and evaluating. We did not succeed, even though we stressed out also beforehand that it would be very important and nice to have the real customers, clients, but also consultants acting out. We did in the end, or we were lucky of maybe, let's say, around 20 sessions, we were able to involve consultants, and it was, I have to say, also maybe the most insightful or very insightful sessions that we had, where we learned a lot, and it was also very good to bring actually the client and the customers together on stage. Nevertheless, this is also why we decided to stress that again. It is important, and it is worth fighting for it, and to try at least to have as many users involved. The fifth challenge is actually, and I guess everybody can imagine that this is quite time and also resource consuming, as we need people who actually build that up, who can plan it, who can organize it, who can design it, and so on. So lots of skills are needed. And same thing actually also on the side of the client, because lots of time is needed, and they have to be quite committed. And as a last part, we spoke a lot about already the distances and the sizes, and obviously it would be nice to scale it up even more, but this would make it also more complicated. Our solution toward that was that our prototypes were quite flexible, so we were able to adapt them also to different modules, different parts of the space and the environment. But if you would like to build the whole space, obviously you would need a very, very big hall, and also lots of material. And this leads me to our last point also, that actually it's always about finding new solutions and ways on what kind of methods would be good to use.
Yeah, exactly. So basically this is, we think, also the point that we want to make with our talk. We already started with that in the beginning. So there is, in this situation, there is hybrid touch points, and they are multiple, and there is increasing expectation. So we as a discipline, and also people working in that field, need to advance and experiment with different methods and tools for situated service prototyping. So with that, we wanted to also make a link. Finally, last year, our former colleague Gregor made a talk about another method that we used. Namely, we named it spatial prototyping in VR. That was presented 2008. What you see here is an example of a future station of Hamburg rail station, which was supposed to be a hub in the future, very, very complex dynamic environment. So what we did here is that we built a very low fidelity VR reconstruction basically of the space, how it should be, and so that people could actually explore the digital signage, which was in this particular topic the focus, and how the dynamic it would change, how you would experience it, record, obviously, like people's movement, and discuss on a way different level about basically the topic at hand. And that will lead us to the end of the talk. Thank you. And we want to thank to our friend Sasha from XDS that made those beautiful illustrations and made it possible to talk about something impossible. And yeah, with this, we thank you and would like to open the talk for questions and share your own experiences or ask us something. Thank you.